The gallery, and thank you for this beautiful exhibition. It's such a treat to be amongst all these beautiful paintings. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
This is our fourth exhibition together.
Wow.
And we started with Bay Light, and then we moved to Tuscan Light, and then we moved to Electric Light, and now we have Pastoral Light. And so this is a wonderful evolution of your work, and it's exciting to get to hear what you have to say about all these new paintings. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the inspiration?
Well, it may be obvious, but the word light is in all these titles, and they really are at the core of how I approach any subject matter, regardless if it's landscape, still life. I'm always looking at the light, and in every different subject matter, every series, it brings me new inspiration, new exciting fields to explore. And so this one, somehow I thought about bringing a bit of history, a little slice of history into the present, future, so forth. So that's what we'll talk more about, but that's really what Pastoral Light is for me and how it began. So.
Well, it's so fun to have an artist create a body of work which is cohesive, there's a through line, and you can look at the entire work together and get a little bit of a sense of, you know, what you're looking at rather than just individual paintings. And we began, Andrew was telling me about this idea for this show many months ago, and, you know, we always talk a little bit about, well, what is going to be the next theme, and Andrew is always cooking up these wonderful ideas. And he started talking about this, and we had these wonderful conversations about historical paintings. You know, all artists are art historians. They all look back and they get a sense of what has come before them and how that influences their work. And the history of art is littered with beautiful landscape paintings. And we were talking specifically about 19th century artists, Corot being one of the most famous. Probably everybody here has heard that name. And artists like Theodore Rousseau and Narcís Díaz de la Peña and Thomas Cole, and on into maybe a little bit more contemporary art like Wolf Kahn, this beautiful barn painting here, and maybe even Richard Diebenkorn, here local artists who have been influencing many artists in the way that they approach landscape painting. So Andrew was talking about how he wanted to take this idea of historical paintings. I don't want to take all of your thunder, so you tell us where you came from with this idea.
I really was interested in the romanticism of pastoral painting, the concept behind many of these paintings in the 1800s. I'm not an art historian, but when you look at them, you see these bucolic scenes, romantic scenes of open pastures with grazing and so forth. It's like almost a little too saccharine sweet. But the idea was idealizing nature and the open field. And I think many of these people who own these paintings were wealthy and didn't even put a foot in the field. But I liked the idea of a romantic view of the landscape, and there was something about the light, the sense of light and serenity in these paintings that made me want to explore in my own style and kind of bring it into the present and the future. And to be honest, it's not my most favorite period of art. I'm much more interested in Impressionism and but there was something about that I felt maybe it's just the romantic view of the open field which really struck a chord with me. And then living in Marin County, hiking with my wife Amy, who's a naturalist, brought me to this place of wanting to explore the romantic notion of open field and light. And so without going into too much detail, that's kind of what this is about, from the most representational pieces to some of the most abstract pieces. The thread throughout is the light. So
Well, and I wanted to share with you something, and there's probably too many people in the room to really be able to do this, but when there's a little bit of a thinner group, I would encourage you to stand in the middle of the room and look around. Andrew told me that even before he saw it in person, what he was hoping for is that you would come into the exhibition and you would be able to stand in the room and look all the way around and feel like you were in the field, feel like you were immersed in this environment. And what's really fun about doing that is that you get to see all these different perspectives, all these different approaches, and in one sense, it is sort of one collective painting from so many different views, so many different approaches, and you really get to see the breadth of your work, which is from representational to abstraction, and it's all the same theme. And so I encourage you to do that when you get a little bit less people in the room, but that's a wonderful
And thank you for
idea.
saying that, because for me, painting is a very immersive experience. And I also encourage you to stand in front of this painting 2 inches away and look at it like I do sometimes, where I can't see the edges of the painting from the periphery of my vision, and I'm in it, and I paint very intuitively. And so I'm in it when I'm painting. And so I was hoping to have this sense, and please tell me when you look at the exhibit if I'm wrong, but I was hoping that when this was completed, that you could stand in the middle of the gallery and just sort of do a slow 360 and have a sense that you're in some field and you're seeing certain views as you turn around. Some views when you're in a field are very clear and you have a sense of what's there, and some areas may be filled with fog and it's very abstract. And so my hope, not sure if it's successful, but my hope was that you could stand in the center of the gallery and just kind of look around and have a sense of place. So.
Well, and it ties back to this romanticism of the countryside and the serenity that one might feel. I've had the great pleasure of spending all week here in the gallery with many people as they've come in to see the work, and over and over again I hear people say, oh, it's very calming, it's very serene, I feel really good being around these paintings. And I think going back to the 19th century and the artists who were painting turn of the century, Industrial Revolution, Paris was very dirty, it was very polluted and smelled, and this is partly why artists were going out to the forest of Fontainebleau to find nature, because they would then paint it and bring it back. And the Parisians loved this idea of the countryside because it was beautiful and clean and fresh. And when people come in here, I find that we all need a little bit of serenity, and they feel like they get to bathe in it here in your beautiful landscape. So achieved.
That's really nice. That's really nice.
So I just wanted to bring something up about a few paintings in the show, and since we're standing by this one of the things that I wanted to mention, and one of the things that I love to hear you talk about in your work, is finding that horizon line and what you do with it, because the most abstract of your paintings are sort of the absence of the props, the tree, the rock, the stream, the cloud, the sun, the things that help us to identify a landscape. And you really like to push out into abstraction and see how far you can take it. And people love to make meaning. So when they look at a painting, they're like, oh, what do you think that means? And I love when you talk about the horizon line. So talk to us a little bit about finding that horizon and what you're doing with those colors.
Well, I think, putting a horizon in the landscape is kind of cheating, because I feel like you put the horizon in the landscape and then it's a landscape. You don't have to do anything else. But I also feel like it is the starting point for something that could become more abstracted. You can put it in, erase it, and this one you can see that line is kind of erased right here, but you can still, your eye fills it in and you can still see it. But I think that this piece specifically is, it's called contemplation, and I'm thinking, in this case, I'm kind of going back to nature to really get some comfort for maybe concerns about the years ahead. There's a lot in this turbulent world with climate change and other things that are happening that are real things. And when you go back to nature, it is a source of comfort and, for me, contemplation. And so that tranquility is something that I go back to often. And so this is a joyous painting where I can celebrate the moment. And in terms of what you were saying, in terms of abstract elements and representational elements, I intentionally put in little kind of moments in the painting where I may see something, but I want it to be open for interpretation. So this could be a light of a car or a house in the distance or something, or it could be something completely different. But I paint very intuitively, so the marks kind of make themselves, and I love it when somebody says, I see this mountain ridge here, and I really love the way you painted this mountain ridge where maybe I intend it to be a dark cloud or something like that. I love that because that's where, abstraction meets representation, and that's kind of where I want to be right now. So.
Well, moving to the other side of that, you do have some representational paintings, and this is our first show with cows. And people love cows, so yeah. Let's talk about cows.
Well, when I first called Pamela and I said, I'm really getting somewhere with this Pastoral Light series, and I even got a painting with cows, and she's like, uh-oh. Really? Are you serious? And I said, don't worry, you'll like them. But when she came to my studio and she saw this painting, she's like, I really like the cows. I'm really surprised. And so I took it, before she even said anything about it, I took it as my own personal challenge to make a painting that wasn't really about cows, but had these as almost design elements and elements of personality and character that worked with the whole painting. I also have a background in graphic design, so I think of these also as elements where these black and white contrasty elements are kind of separating themselves. I actually had someone who saw this painting and they said, is that cow in the grass or is it floating in the water? I can't really tell. Like, it's up to you. It doesn't matter to me.
Well, what I like about it is that the cows are not really the subject of the painting, which is hard to do because they are the most obvious object in the painting. But I feel that when you look at the painting, it feels very natural to see it as a landscape without them really being the subject, and I think that's hard to do. So I think that you figured out a way to include cows without it being just a cow painting.
Yeah, they're supporting actors, but I think the sky,
they are supporting actors.
Is
I like that.
Star of the show here.
It is.
And somebody was talking to me about icing cakes, with doing cake icing, and they said, do you feel like you're sort of icing a cake? And actually, I do. And especially if you look in this part, it looks like I use the palette knife and brush, but there's a lot of differences in thick and thin and textures.
And then barns are also something that they're a subject that you've visited a lot. And I was listening to you talk to someone today about the barn in this painting here. And I really loved that you talked about the idea that, let me come over here, that when you painted this, that it's really just three colors. And that you were trying, I've heard you before talk about softening buildings and that the building doesn't need these hard edges. It doesn't really work in the landscape. And so I really loved that you talked about simplifying that structure to really just being these three colors. And so barns are iconic, and tell us a little bit about the barns that you've included in the show.
Well, when I was about 10 years old, my parents bought a 200-year-old stone barn in Virginia and remodeled a third of it for a house that we could go. It had electricity, but no phone, no, this is way before internet, but we had radio, no TV or whatever. And so our family, I was one of 5 kids, and our whole family would go out there for summers and weekends and so forth, and we would go to the barn. And it was actually used as a hospital during the Civil War. But my dad was an architect, very modern on the inside, but very rustic and old on the, and so I grew to appreciate the structure of a barn, living out in the country, how iconic they are. And so I always notice them when I'm out and about, often taking pictures out the window of my car of barns. And so in terms of the handling of this and some of the other ones here, when elements are in the distance, they really do have soft edges. If there's too much detail in something you're depicting in the distance, it's going to come forward. So it actually works in your favor if it's a little blobby and blurry. And so these type of elements I'll usually just do very gesturally. And this may have been the 4th or 5th barn that I put in here. And I just work intuitively, so I kind of know, my eye knows when it's done, but it's not labored. It's just like, maybe I don't have it in some, maybe there's some barns hidden in some of these that I just decided didn't work, but this seemed to work. I like the pink roof. I don't know why. It's kind of fun.
Well, and this painting as well, I would say, like the cows, the barn is not really the subject of the painting. It's just part of the landscape, and that's partly what is so compelling about the work. The painting beside you, that one, the barn, is really the subject of the painting. And when I was talking about Wolf Kahn, I really think about his work when I see this, because he painted a lot of barns. He loved these really saturated colors, and I think I got to see this painting as it matured. And I think it was a really challenging painting, and one that you really worked with to get exactly the structure here.
It was challenging, and it shouldn't be, but I guess it just was, because, and I was inspired by Wolf Kahn. He really paved the way. If you don't know Wolf Kahn's work, he's no longer living, but you should Google him. He's really a master of color, but also he really paved the way for a lot of artists to approach color in a different way. And so this piece, this actual color blue of the barn was red, it was orange, it was pink, it was a million colors. And then I landed on this blue with this green behind, and then a red roof. So, that's part of the fun of the exploration and the journey. And because my style is so loose, it's very forgiving. If you see remnants of the color of the barn that was 10 colors ago, it actually makes it more interesting because there's a history there. So I don't worry about painting over stuff. I just keep going, come in the next day, oh, that works, that doesn't work, and it's not frustrating at all. It's so fun, so fun.
And then I think the perfect opposition to that is Dawn's Break, because that piece, and this is, sorry, there's, on this side.
Sorry to move you all around.
Is very abstract, and I think that is one of your favorite pieces in the collection.
Yes, this is called Dawn's Break, and it is one of the first pieces I completed from the series, and I really wanted to nail down the light, the sense of light. So aside from the barns and the cows and all the actors in the play, I wanted to make sure that I had a sense of setting the stage for this whole collection. And so for me, this piece really sets the stage, because you're not distracted by any specific elements. It just, to me, it works as a whole, and it has drama in the sky and a sense of place in the foreground. But it's simple. It almost works as an abstract painting. So.
And that's hard to do. I think that, it really means that the light has to be right, the colors have to be good, because that's what the painting depends upon. So I wanted to bring up one last thing here tonight, because it's something that's near and dear to us. Andrew has very generously offered to donate a digital print tonight to the wildlife relief efforts. And so on the wall over there is a framed print. It's a digital print. And I wanted to make mention of it because, number one, a lot of people don't know that Andrew does prints. And I've had a couple of questions about it. So I thought that I would just say that Andrew does work in an iPad application, and that's a lot of the time when he's out and about looking and doing preliminary drawings, he does these iPad drawings. Sometimes those drawings then evolve and he feels that they've gone to a place where he feels he has a finalized painting, and then he prints that. And so that is the only way to own that type of work. He does not make prints of his paintings.
Right.
Sometimes he'll make a digital print and he'll like the composition so much that he will then use that as inspiration for a painting. So it's sort of a reverse of what a lot of artists do. This beautiful piece, which was done in Point Reyes, is a digital print, edition of 20. Andrew is donating it. We have a silent auction going on right now, and it is only up to about $950. And so I want to encourage you, we're going to keep it open for 15 more minutes. The person who is the highest bidder tonight will win that piece of art, and your entire donation will go towards the Greater Good Fund, which is giving money and support to those suffering from losses with the fires in LA, which is a horrific tragedy. I also wanted to mention that Andrew and I have gotten together and decided that anything purchased tonight in the gallery will also be a 10% donation to the Greater Good Foundation. So be generous. A couple of other things. There are scan codes if you just want to make direct donations to the Greater Good. And then the final thing is I do want to give a little shout out to Guillaume Bien-Aimé, who is the owner of Bar Zola, one block over, French restaurant, amazing food. He was the one who created the custom craft cocktail inspired by Andrew's work, named by Andrew, Serenity Now, which is a great cocktail name and also very funny. So thank you, Guillaume, for doing that for us tonight. Thank you all for coming. Andrew, congratulations. This is an amazing show.
Thank you. And I just want to tell you all thank you so much for being here. This